Good morning. You're listening to the BLAINESWORLD Show, a podcast heard here on Facebook Live, LinkedIn, YouTube, a whole bunch of other places as well. And my guest today is Lisa Bryant, who's the producing artistic director of Flat Rock Playhouse. Welcome aboard, Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. And you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching you there. So if anybody's watching,
Hello, friends.
okay, that is Lisa Bryant. And the question, Lisa, I always ask guests for the first time is in terms of as a child, you grew up where?
I was born in Georgia, but grew up mostly in Virginia. We did a little moving around, but mostly Hampton, Virginia, the Hampton Roads area.
Okay. And were you a theater kid?
Yes. So I guess I started in community theater. My dad was a music director at some of the army bases that we were on, and so that just sort of naturally got me into the community theater space. But I took dance class and piano lessons and all the things. I just grew up in a musical family, or I should say, I grew up in a family that appreciated the arts and musicals and such. So it was just always part of life.
Do you remember the first play you were ever in?
Like literally the first play I was ever in.
Exactly, yeah. As a kid, even before.
It would have to be, I remember playing a hummingbird in the second grade, but I don't know if that was literally the first play that I was ever in.
Because I asked that question for a reason, and I have a great idea, at least I'll share with you for Flat Rock to do, and I've shared it with other people as well. But I'd love everybody to be able to do their very first play, because can you imagine being able to, because you don't, I assume, have a videotape of that, or they don't have a record of that somewhere?
No. Mm-mm.
But wouldn't that be good if everybody could show their first, as a hummingbird or a tree or wherever they
Oh,
were?
sure. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a long time, but I just think that'd be a tremendous fundraiser, for to see Scott Treadway or see other, Flat Rock
Yeah.
regulars. And I
Yeah.
just if you ever do it, I'd be glad to help you with it. I just think it'd be a lot of fun. So you
That's
grew
fun. Yeah.
from a hummingbird. Did you then act in high school or college from then on?
Yeah. So I just, yeah, I mean, I did community theater in elementary school. And then I think I did like a play or two in middle school, but then, yeah, I did all the plays in high school that I could. And then went on to Elon University, Elon College at the time, to be a musical theater major. So, I mean, I just kind of always did it. It just wasn't, I was never like, I'm going to do this. I just did this. So
Do you
yeah.
ever, do you have a favorite role you've had?
Those questions are always so hard because my brain just clogs with all the different
Just
responses.
one comes to mind.
Let's see. So there have been a million that I've had the pleasure of playing. Elvira in Blithe Spirit was a blast. I had a
Okay.
good time with her. I don't know. I've been really lucky. I've had a lot of great roles.
Do you prefer musicals or non-musicals?
Both. Love them both.
So, how about talk about how you got into directing then?
How I got into directing, did you
Yeah.
say? Directing was a natural evolution from teaching. So I really credit that ultimately with Betsy Bassan, who was the longtime resident director of education at the Playhouse. She was here for like 15 years in that particular capacity. She was here longer than that in other spaces. But I had moved to New York and was living in New York and, doing the thing and not happy, not enjoying it. And she said, well, why don't you stay here for a year? I was in for a summer contract, and she said, why don't you stay here for a year and teach? I need a teacher. And I was like, no, I don't know how to teach. I know how to do it, but I don't know how to teach. And she's like, I'll teach you. And I said, okay. So I did, and she was an amazing mentor, an amazing teacher herself. And teaching just inherently led to, small little plays in classes, like with kids, and then led to co-directing or assistant directing with her and choreographing, main stage shows that the kids were in. And then it was just sort of a natural evolution out of teaching, where opportunities just kept coming. And then I was directing the apprentices, who are big kids, as most of them are in college. And then ultimately took on the pros. So it was just a natural evolution.
Now, do you have a preference in terms of if you could act or direct? Do you have a preference?
I love them both. I, I think if you threatened my life and said I could only choose one, I suppose at those stakes I might choose acting, but I love them both very much in very
It's,
different ways.
it's funny, you're kind of an exception. I ask a lot of actors there, directors that as well. Most folks seem to choose directing. The reason being, they don't tell the truth, Lisa, but the reason being is they don't have to memorize the parts anymore. So they have to know all the parts, but they have to memorize them.
Right.
And we'll kind of fast forward. We'll go back and forth a little. But that reminds me of a story you were telling me off the air that even though you were involved in putting on a play, you recently had to get up on stage as well. Does that happen often?
I mean, it doesn't normally happen. No, it was an extraordinary circumstance. But yeah, just this year, we were in rehearsals for West Side Story, of which I was directing, and the woman playing Diane, the character Diane in Million Dollar Quartet, was in rehearsal for West Side Story, and she popped her knee. And this was on a Friday, just a couple hours before the Friday evening. And we got somebody in to take a look at it, and it just was like, she just really doesn't need to go on tonight. And so, in order to save her both for Million Dollar Quartet and ultimately so that her tenure with West Side Story wouldn't be compromised, we just needed her to take a time out, for a minute. And so,
You
there I
were
was.
there.
And I went in on book. I mean, I had to hold the script, but the boys were amazing, and they just kind of directed me with their eyeballs around the stage where I needed to be at any given time. So the costume folks are brilliant. They pulled me I mean, I was in a costume. I had an hour of rehearsal. I had everything done for me in about 90 minutes. And then boom, we were on stage. So it was fun, and my people are amazing. So
Was that just one show, or you did it for the rest of the
I wound
run?
up doing for two. I did a Friday night and a Saturday day. So,
Okay.
and then she was
So,
back for the evening.
well, the proverbial, the show must go on. But what amazes me, Lisa, I'm thinking out of all the shows I see, and I see a lot of shows, very few of them, excepting for this COVID stuff, get canceled. It's
Oh
amazing
yeah.
that how many shows run, and there can be so many things go wrong with it, but somehow they all, I'm talking not only at Flat Rock, but other places as well.
Everywhere. Oh
It's
yeah.
just amazing. It's even, I see a lot of stuff at Montford, and the only time a show gets canceled there when it absolute pours, even the rain they perform. So it's just kind of cool that, because talk a little bit about that. Even at Flat Rock, you don't have understudies for the most part. Is that correct?
For the most part, we do not. Yeah. Every now and then we're able to work it out, and certainly with COVID this year, we did as much as we could. But as a regional theater, our resources are limited. Those resources being housing, finances, and so it's we're not in a position to be able to house and transport and pay enough backups that for a swing or an understudy to cover a full show like you would find in New York, Broadway, or a major regional theater.
But
So yeah, the show has to go on.
and what's incredible, like I said, over the years, you've had so few cancellations. Considering,
Right.
just amazing. Talk a little bit about, Lisa, what you do as a producing. The title, I guess, of producing artistic director. What does a producing artistic director do at Flat Rock Playhouse?
Well, it was explained to me when I took on the job that producing artistic director sort of is a signal um, in the industry that I don't have an executive partner. So as a producing artistic director, I am over both the executive side of the house and the artistic side of the house, which is true. I have had I certainly have help and support, and my financial manager is, for all intents and purposes, almost a managing director. She's amazing in her support, but that has not been my full tenure. So at the end of the day, it just means I'm responsible for, everything.
And especially if anything goes wrong, you're responsible for
That's
it.
me. That's
Yeah.
right. That's why I've got these poofy sleeves so that my shoulders just have a little extra cushion, all that weight, all that responsibility.
Well, the cool thing about Flat Rock too is the fact that aside from the main stage theater, you do a lot of other things as well. And talk about some of those things, because over the last several years, I know you now have a whole musical series. Or talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that series.
Yeah, so we have Music on the Rock, which internally we call Motor. We refer to as Motor, but so those are basically tribute concerts. So the music of the Eagles, the music of Queen, the music of insert your artist or your band, or sometimes we call it like 70s summer nights, and it's just a collection, you know, a jukebox, if you will, of tunes befitting whatever the title is. And so that's really robust, and certainly our audiences love music in the way that they also love musicals. And so we really honestly can't deliver enough on them. Folks just really enjoy them. But we have, obviously our main stage, our Music on the Rock series. We have our family programming through Studio 52, which is, children's theater shows for kids, for families, by kids, by families. And so that's been with us for, decades and decades. It goes under different names, sometimes youth theater, Theater for Young People, TYP, and now Studio 52. And actually, I'm so glad you asked me that question, Blaine, because this year we're introducing a whole new series called the Black Box series, which is actually going to be opening in about a month, where we are creating a black box stage on the main stage of our theater. So for those folks that may not be familiar with the term black box or what that is, typically it just means a smaller space than a main stage sort of space. Often it's more versatile. You can set it up in sort of different configurations. But the implication, broadly speaking, is that it's a more intimate space. And so we're introducing that this year for the first time on our main stage, so that you would come to our theater, you'll walk in the front door, and you'll see that you're going to just walk all the way down the aisle and continue up actually onto our stage.
Too cool. Okay, I was
For
wondering.
the audience, where we will build another stage on top of the stage, and the audience will sit in the round around that stage. And this is allowing us to produce different kinds of material. We know that we have an audience out there, and mutually we have artists right here and out there that are just looking for something a little bit other than our more traditional commercial fare. So they love Million Dollar Quartet, they love Mamma Mia, but folks out there also want sort of maybe a different sort of offering. So it's going to allow us to expand the kinds of stories that we tell, reflect, and represent. It just allows us to creatively create a different sort of theatrical experience by setting people in the round, or possibly a small proscenium on the proscenium, or a small 3/4 thrust. All of these things are being discussed for future seasons. And just allows us to connect and maybe incite a re-interest in plays in general, which is also something that industry-wide, the plays keep getting beaten by the musicals in terms of attendance and interest, but we want to ensure that we still maintain that offering and tell all of those stories in all the various ways that we're capable of telling. So it'll be really intimate. We have used the word immersive, but I have gotten feedback that some people are feeling like the word immersive means they have to participate. You're not participating. It's just that you are literally sort of smack dab in the middle of these characters' living rooms, like ultimate voyeurs. And it's just a really cool, up close and personal experience.
Talk about the plays, though. Typically, they're also smaller in size. Is that correct?
Typically, and certainly ours will be, because our space will be quite small. And so the first two shows that we've selected out of the gate are God of Carnage and Blood Knot by Athol Fugard. Blood Knot by Athol Fugard, God of Carnage by Yasmina Reza. If I'm saying that correctly, forgive me if I'm not. One is a 4-person show. Blood Knot is a 2-person show. And they're extraordinary in their own right. God of Carnage is a multi-Tony Award winner from 08, 09, somewhere in that world, and features the sort of devolving relationship between two sets of parents who have come together to speak agreeably about the fight between their two young boys, their two
Oh,
young
it's a
elementary
great
school
show.
age
Yeah.
boys, and it rapidly devolves and becomes sort of an observation of the worst of our tendencies, of course, enhanced and dramatized for this show. It's a dark comedy, but it's hilarious.
It's
It's
a
really
great choice.
it's raucous.
How many how
Yes,
many seats will that stage hold?
about 160.
Okay, so yeah, different. The main theater has how many seats?
About 430, and then maybe up to 450 if we add extra seating.
So certainly the nice thing about being on stage there, everybody's going to have a great seat.
Absolutely, everyone's going to have a great seat. I mean, even if you're familiar with our former downtown space on Main Street, it's even closer than that. Blood Knot is also something very exciting to us. It's coming to us from Africa. It takes place during 1960s apartheid Africa, written by Athol Fugard, who was a preeminent writer in South Africa. And that's, again, part of our mission with the Black Box series, is also to introduce works and stories from around the world. And so this is the Blood Knot is kicking that particular component off as well in its particular capacity.
And the thing I like about that one in particular is I haven't seen that anywhere in the Asheville area. I've
Yeah,
been here for a bunch of years, and that's kind of exciting to see stuff you haven't seen elsewhere.
cool.
Go back to two other things you mentioned. We were talking about some of the things that happen at Flat Rock. Talk a little bit about the apprentice program, what that is, if you would.
Sure. So from the very beginning, the Farquhar family, they had two missions that would be the fundamental foundation upon which they would grow Flat Rock Playhouse. One was professional excellence in the shows that they produced, and the other was education. And in the earliest years, education was defined then as college students, early career professionals who thought that they would want to go into this industry in a professional sort of capacity. And so right from the get-go, Flat Rock Playhouse was born, and right alongside was the apprentice program, which is even to this day, usually college students, sometimes fresh out of school, who come and they spend the summer here. They work alongside the professionals, the acting professionals, and the artisans as well, in the shops, in the admin offices, and then of course on stage. And it really gives them a real quick taste of actually what being a theater professional actually means, what it actually involves, and what it really takes to cut it in this industry. That it's hard and it's grueling and it's got a lot of challenges. And when you're not exposed to what that really looks like, especially prior to leaving your training program, that can be extremely shocking and jarring once you sort of leave the nest of education. And so the Farquhars and on up these last 70 years, we are providing that experience and exposing those young people to, like, hey, this is really what it looks like, and we want to help you prepare for that, whether that's actually the physical labor, the learnings, or the networking that is so critical to success in the industry.
Do some of those folks wind up on main stage performances?
Oh yes, all the time. In
Right.
fact, we're producing Guess Who's Coming to Dinner right now, and the leading young lady is a former apprentice. She was
Oh,
just an
very
apprentice with
exciting.
us in 2018. Oh no, we one of our favorite phrases internally is we grow our own, and we love an apprentice who goes on to become a main stage actor, or a designer, or an electrician. They come in, they think they want to be an actor, and suddenly they're on the LX crew, or they're in the shop and they're like, oh my gosh, I have a talent I never knew I had, and boom, off they go in a whole new direction. And that's part of the education, that's part of the mission behind the apprenticeship as well.
have some of the apprentices gone on to bigger things, in terms
Oh
of,
yeah. Oh yeah.
you know,
I mean, they're on television, they're on Broadway. I'm yeah, they're in film. I mean, yeah,
very
they're
exciting.
they're working. We're very proud. We're very proud of the program, and we see year after year after year the impact that it makes, regardless of whether or not they wind up going into the field professionally. It's an intense season. It's of growth in the time that they're here with us. But more often than not, we, we hear over and over again the impact that it made in their lives, just as human beings, just as sort of citizens of the world. And that's the greatest compliment of all.
You also have, correct me if I'm wrong, interns as well?
We do. So we
Eh,
sort of distinguish
Please.
apprentices as performance based and interns as tech based.
Gotcha.
Just in our terminology here at the Playhouse. So the interns are in the shops, representing all the shops, costumes, props, sound, lights, set, all of it. And then the apprentices are focusing on performance.
Okay, and if we can, Lisa, let's just kind of take this to the current season then. And
Sure.
you've had like an amazing current season. I guess I'll have you just talk first of all about West Side Story. You
Yeah.
decided to go just a little small musical. You wanted to just take.
Well, it was originally in our 2020
I
season,
remember, yeah.
and our 2020 season sold like bananas. I mean, people were so excited about the titles in that season. And so we made a commitment that we would deliver on as many or all of those titles as quickly as we could when we came back to life. And so West Side Story, the last couple of surveys that we had run, the most recent survey had put it at number one, and pretty much every survey that we had run, it would flop somewhere in the top three typically, with the most recent one being at number one. And so we wanted to deliver on that. The audience said that that's what they wanted to see, so we said, okay, then this is what you'll see. And it was amazing. It was a beautiful production. It was from all of the designers, the technicians, the actors, choreographers, everybody. It just felt really special. It was a really special group of folks. And I don't know, it's just one of those ones that came along and everyone was just at their best to come together to create the best version of the story that we could tell. And I'm very proud of it
How
to
many
this
were how many were in the
day.
cast?
Oh gosh.
Wow.
Let's say 24,
Wow.
25, give or take.
Because the thing that you do best, I think, or you do lots of things well, but when I see a big musical at Flat Rock, it knocks my socks off. And the one I think of is Les Miserables, and
Mm.
it was one of the most outstanding things I've ever seen. And
Aw,
I've been
cool.
turned off by the movie. I didn't love the movie. I'd seen the show many times, but boy, did you guys hit it. And then Evita, and
Mm.
you name it. But anytime you have a big musical, that's almost like your forte. Is just incredible. Talk a little bit about the show that's currently running as we speak and how long it's going to run for.
So Guess Who's Coming opened last Friday night. So we've got this week, Wednesday through Sunday, and next week, Wednesday through, I think it goes through Sunday. It might go through Saturday. And yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful story. It's well told. It's beautifully directed, designed, and acted. The audience just lost their minds over it on Friday night. I mean, the reactions that we got were just wide and vast, but they were in it, man. They were listening. They were reacting. I mean, it's unfortunate that a play that's based in 1967 that came out in the 60s, starring Sidney Poitier and Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy and all these amazing people. It's definitely devastating that all these years later it is still so
Oh,
relevant,
okay.
and it is still so I mean, it's poignant. There were audience members who were literally, ooh, whoa, like high school kids, like, I can't believe they're saying that on stage to each other. But I'm thrilled that they're saying it on stage to each other on our stage, telling this story that clearly still needs to be told, and the conversation around it is still being had. And this was also part of our mission and our vision at the Playhouse, coming back to life, if you will, after the pandemic, after being closed for 2 years, and sort of reflecting on like, who are we and who have we been? And we're about to reopen and sort of be new again after 70 years. Like, nobody gets to do that. What do we want to do about that? Let's not waste. This seems like an opportunity, and so coming, as I say, coming back to life, and picking a season that is going to be new again right out of the gate. It was important to us to land a few shows that showed this is the direction that we're going, and that we want to, in fact, stand behind what we've been proud to say, which is showing all kinds of stories, reflecting all kinds of peoples. But mostly we were doing a lot of commercial stuff. There were one-offs here and there, and we're proud of those, and those were great, but want to be more thoughtful moving forward about maybe recalibrating a season in terms of the full slate of offerings. And Black Box series, and certainly Guess Who's Coming to Dinner for this season were very much a part of that conversation.
And again, very exciting, because Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, nobody else has done in the area that I know of.
No, so it's not really been performed a lot. It's exactly. A newer script in general, so you haven't seen it in this area ever. The script is too new for that.
And then even the movie, I vaguely recall, and a lot of people never saw the movie, which is kind of cool. And talk about the remaining of the season, or what's coming up after.
So we just talked about those, and then we've got Black Box, which is God of Carnage, and Blood Knot, and we very much encourage you to come. It's really going to be a cool experience. And then we go to Mamma Mia. Mamma Mia was a huge success a few years ago, and we threw it on the survey just to see, because throughout the industry, it's known to be, quote, a cash cow, and just people just love it. And it ran on Broadway for a disturbingly long amount of time, it seems. And so I just threw it on the survey, and dang it, if people weren't like, yeah, I want to see that. And we had just done it. And so we were like, great, it's fall, it's apple season, leaf looking season. It's a fun time of year, and it's a fun, mindless show. And speaking of rock music, it's really come for the soundtrack, because, it's just a blast, and it's a good time with whoever you come with. And then we have our ever popular, now full-on tradition, it feels like, for lots of families, a Playhouse Christmas. So it will hit its 6th iteration this season. It's a new show every year, but the format is familiar and similar each year, and people love it. So we're finishing up the season with some strong uplifting winners there.
And Lisa, Bryant, if folks want to get more information about Flat Rock Playhouse, some of the shows you've talked about, get tickets, all that good stuff, what's the best bet?
Just go to our website, first and foremost, flatrockplayhouse.org. All the information is there, information about the shows, information about classes. We've got Studio 52 classes that will be starting soon at Studio 52. Also, speaking of that, I'm remiss not to mention that we've got Your Good Man, Charlie, A Charlie Brown Christmas is the 3rd show rounding out the back end of our season, and that will be with our Studio 52 students and families. And local kids come into the shows. And so those auditions are coming up. So audition information, class information, show information, box office information, it's all on our website, flatrockplayhouse.org. You can also call the box office. It's 828-693-0731, and talk with somebody directly in the box office. And then we're on social media as well. We're on Instagram and Facebook.
And lastly, do we have yet you don't have to announce it, but do we have the next year's season?
No, we are in the middle of that. If you could see my desk, you would see several different calendars that we're in that crazy process right now.
And that's good to know, because that means I'm going to have to get you on another show when we have the next year's season, talk a little bit about that.
You got it. Maybe in January we can talk about it with sales and the launch of a whole new season.
Great. Lisa, Bryant, I'd like to thank you for being my guest on this special Blaine's World podcast, and hope to see you at Flat Rock Playhouse in the near future. Thanks.
All right, you got it. Thank you.